When you think about starter gaming PCs, there's two aspects that my mind immediately goes to. The first one is the price is probably fairly reasonable and aggressively towards the budget end. Now, that doesn't mean it's completely all compromises, but you're probably not spending a huge amount of money, especially if you're just testing the waters of PC gaming. The other aspect that I really look for with a starter gaming PC is upgradeability. Can this thing last for future years, or is it sort of a one-trick pony that's good today? It might be good tomorrow, but a couple years from now, it's completely obsolete. So today I bring you a sub $500 build that checks all the boxes for a starter PC. It has fantastic upgradeability. It has hardware to get you up and running on pretty much any game out, with probably a couple of exceptions, though more on that later. And yeah, it's actually a pretty good looking build on top of all that. So let's get into it. So as we get started here, the big thing is all links are down below in case you want to check out parts, and I have a couple of parts edits or recommendations where if you're willing to spend just a little bit more money, you can actually get either significantly more storage or you can get much better game performance. So I'll sort of allude to those as we go along here. But as of the timing of filming, this build would cost you $456. Roughly, and of course it depends on where your vendors are and price fluctuations and all that. But let's start out with the CPU, because the CPU is sort of the brains of the operation outside of the graphics card, of course, and the CPU that I'm going with this thing is a Ryzen 5 4500, and this is by no means a fantastic gaming chip in the sense that it's not gonna win any performance crowns. But the Ryzen 4500 has a couple of tricks up its sleeve. First and foremost, it's 6 cores, 12 threads, so it's actually going to do just fine for the vast majority of games out. Like, it will probably hold your graphics card back, especially if you have a decent graphics card, but it's not going to cripple your graphics card. Like, your graphics card will be able to handle gaming in pretty much any game with a Ryzen 5 4500. It's roughly $80. Brand new with the cooling solution, the Wraith Stealth cooler, which by the way is enough to run this thing without it overheating like crazy. Like, it's not a hot chip. And the reason all that's a big deal, it's on the AM4 platform. So you have, with this CPU, 6 cores, 12 threads, cooling included, and it's a drop-in upgrade with a newer CPU that can get you way better gaming performance. Like, you can go from the Ryzen 5 4500 all the way up to like a Ryzen 7 5700X 3D, which just came out, and it's got to give you way better gaming performance. So this gives you great scalability with this particular CPU. Now, motherboard-wise, I would go with kind of whatever B550 motherboard is out there that's not overly expensive, and sort of keep in mind future upgrades, especially when you think about the power delivery. If you really want to throw in down the road a 16-core, 32-thread monster like the 5950X, then you're going to want to spend a little bit more on a motherboard. But if you're really just looking for maybe an 8-core upgrade down the road, you can get away with a pretty budget-friendly motherboard. The one that I have with this system was from eBay, so it's a little bit cheaper, but if you're going brand new, expect to pay $80, $90, $100 in that range. Memory, start with 16 gigabytes DDR4. I would recommend getting a 3600 kit. I would at least spend a little bit of extra because DDR4 memory right now is so cheap. Get 16 gigs, get fast speed, and you're off to the races. As far as storage goes, I would actually recommend getting a 1 terabyte NVMe drive here. You're going to spend about $20-ish more for a 1 terabyte drive over a 512 gigabyte drive, but you have a lot more room for your games. And even if you wanted to keep it under $500 as built, you have that space to still upgrade to the 1 terabyte. I went with 512 in my build, mostly because I already owned the drive. But again, I recommend the 1 terabyte. And then we get to the graphics card, where it's probably the one place that I would actually recommend going over the budget just a little bit to get yourself significantly better performance. So I have in here an RX 580. This is an 8 gigabyte card, but it's the 2048 SP version. So it's actually slightly cut down from the original RX 580 8 gigabyte card, and it gets you up and running. Like, you can play pretty much any game out on this GPU, but I would recommend just raising the budget just a little bit, because this card is already $100, you can get a used RX 6600 for about $150, $160, $170, which would put you slightly over the $500 budget if that's kind of where you're at, but you're going to get way better performance to the point where it becomes a PC you don't even need to upgrade in the immediate future in any meaningful way whatsoever. There's no dabbling in PC gaming at that point. Like, you just have a legit good gaming PC with an RX 6600, and you'd be good to go for probably a few 4-5 years without upgrading the system like virtually at all. Now, obviously, you're going to have to slowly step down settings with new AAA titles that push the CPU and the GPU to the brink, but it'll get you going, and you won't have to worry about upgrades for a while. Now, the case, I've had really great luck with these DIY PC S3 ARGB. They come with 3 fans. They have ARGB control on the front panel. There's no like remotes to mess around with. It's just a button that cycles through all the RGB. But if you're willing to spend slightly more, there is an Amazon Gamdius alternative that's about $5 more as of the time of filming, and it's going to give you 3 fans as well in a slightly different configuration. But again, pick something that you're going to be happy with for the foreseeable future. This case is a really, really good value. It houses all the components I need it to. It looks good when the build is done. It's actually pretty easy to build in, so I actually really like this case, especially for the price. And then for the power supply, I have a 700 watt Thermaltake smart unit, and this is a pretty old unit at this point, but as long as you're sticking to like mid-range or even mid-upper range, like as long as you're not pushing the high-end GPUs onto this power supply, it's going to be just fine for covering anything from like RX 6600s, RTX 4060s. Those types of cards are going to be no problem at all with this power supply, and the value is hard to deny at about $55 as of the time of purchasing. And again, as I built out my system, if I purchased everything brand new, about $456. Now, I bought some parts on the used market, so I did a little bit better than that, but sub 500. And let's take a look at how the gaming performance is in a few titles. Now, Pacific Drive is a pretty new game. It's not exactly optimized right now, but it's one that's had fantastic reviews. So if you're looking to play this game with this PC, an RX 580 2048 SP. It's running at 1440p, but then the render resolution is scaled to 75%, and it's getting anywhere from 40 to 60 FPS depending on exactly where you are in the game, but absolutely a very playable frame rate for a title like this. And this is one of those games that's probably gonna get better optimized as it ages as well. At least I would expect the developer to continue to work on that. This title just came out and it runs just fine on this PC. Now, getting into a title that's been out for a while, Hogwarts Legacy, 720p FSR2 performance mode. And yeah, again, very playable. Once again, the GPU is really holding this title back. This is why I would really recommend jumping for an RX 6600 instead. But if you're sticking to that sub $500 price point, this is a very playable frame rate. The game doesn't look nearly as good as it could look, but this will get you up and running if you're just trying to dabble in PC gaming to make sure it's something you're actually interested in. This will absolutely do that. And finally, for those of you out there that are more into multiplayer esports type titles, Counter-Strike 2 running at roughly 100 FPS at 1080p on high settings. And again, with PC gaming, you can tweak the settings to your heart's content to kind of target different frame rates and different levels of eye candy. But if you're just looking to run esports titles that are in the realm of like your Counter-Strikes or your Overwatches, then this PC, once again, is going to do that with no problem at all. So if you are somebody or you know somebody that's thinking about getting into PC gaming, this price point is perfect because it's roughly the same price you're going to pay for a PS5, but you immediately start to benefit from the PC ecosystem. You save a little money on your games. You have Xbox Game Pass, the PC variant at least, available to you as a subscription service to get access to a huge number of games for a pretty low monthly cost. And of course, your online is completely free. So you get a lot of benefits, and this is a great price point to just start dabbling and seeing if PC gaming is right for you. And with so few console exclusives out and so many games basically doing cross-platform multiplayer now, it's never been a better time to get into PC gaming, or at least to explore if it's right for you. So once again, links are in the description down below. If you like the video, give it a like, share, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you think of the build, what you would change about it. Otherwise, I'm Shane from Hoosier Hardware, and I will see all of you in the next video.